Close your eyes for just a moment. Try to remember the crisp, smoky scent of a winter morning in the 1980s. Can you hear the rhythmic squeak of a heavy iron bicycle pedal? Or the distant, melodic call of a street vendor selling roasted sweet potatoes? Welcome back to a time when our world felt entirely different. Today we are taking a gentle walk down memory lane to look at 20 things that were absolutely normal in China during the 1970s and 1980s. These were the everyday rituals, the habits, and the sights that painted the backdrop of our childhoods. Yet if you tried to do any of these things today, you would find them completely illegal, heavily fined, or strictly banned. As we count down these forgotten moments, I want you to pay close attention to the very last one, because it holds the most touching memory of all, a true reflection of the warmth we used to share. Before we begin our list, let us remember how time used to flow back then. It moved slower, without the frantic rush of modern smartphones and instant deliveries. Life in the era of the iron rice bowl and the communal courtyards was built on patience and proximity. We waited for the postman to bring letters on his green bicycle. We waited for our neighbors to finish using the communal water tap. Some people today might look back at those decades and think we were poor because we lacked modern technology and sleek apartments. But that is a profound misunderstanding. We were incredibly rich in human connection. We shared our food, our space, and our lives with a level of sincerity that feels almost impossible to find in today's fast-paced world. The rules were looser, the streets were shared living rooms, and the community was our true safety net. Let us explore the things we used to do freely, the things that made our days so vibrant and full of life. Let us start with the mornings in the 1980s. Do you recall the sharp, unmistakable scent of burning coal that filled the damp morning air? Back then, almost every family in the city relied on honeycomb coal briquettes, known as feng wo mei, for both cooking and heating. It was a daily communal ritual. You would wake up before the sun, step out into the freezing, dimly lit communal hallway of your apartment building, and use long metal tongs to carefully place a new briquette onto the dying embers of the old one. The thick smoke would billow out, filling the narrow corridors, making everyone cough slightly as they greeted each other in their thick, padded winter coats. These little round stoves sat right outside our front doors, completely unregulated and unguarded. We cooked our morning porridge on them, and the gentle bubbling sound was the heartbeat of the building. Neighbors would share their fire if yours went out, passing a glowing red briquette from tongs to tongs. Today, placing an open coal stove in a shared indoor hallway is completely illegal, due to strict fire safety and air quality regulations. The modern hallways are clean, safe, and entirely empty. But sometimes, on a very cold winter morning, you might still miss the warmth of those glowing coals and the cheerful chatter of neighbors gathered around them. And speaking of those communal apartment buildings, let us remember the sounds of the early morning. Waking up to the loud crowing of a rooster while living on the fourth floor of a concrete city apartment building was perfectly normal. Raising chickens, ducks, and sometimes even a small pig on the narrow balconies or in the shared concrete courtyards was a way of life. Every family had a little wooden coop tucked away in the corner. We fed the chickens with leftover cabbage leaves and kitchen scraps, and the children were given the proud task of checking for fresh eggs every morning. It was a piece of the countryside brought right into the heart of the bustling city. Neighbors never complained about the noise. Instead, they would trade a handful of scallions for a fresh egg. It brought a sense of rural self-sufficiency to the urban landscape. Today, keeping poultry and livestock on city balconies or in residential courtyards is strictly illegal under modern sanitary and urban management laws. We no longer wake up to the sound of roosters in the city, replaced instead by the hum of traffic and the blare of car horns. Now let us walk down to the local wet market, which brings us to another vivid memory. Buying meat in the 1980s was a deeply sensory experience. Street vendors and farmers would bring live poultry in woven bamboo cages and set them up right on the busy sidewalks. When you wanted a chicken for a special Sunday dinner, you did not pick up a plastic-wrapped package from a refrigerated shelf. You pointed to the lively bird in the cage. Right there on the side of the street, the vendor would slaughter, bleed, and pluck the chicken with swift, practiced hands. The smell of hot water hitting feathers, the frantic flapping, and the blood on the cobblestones were simply the sights and sounds of fresh food being prepared. It was raw, it was real, and you knew exactly what you were feeding your family. Today, the open street slaughter of live poultry is completely banned in major cities due to health codes, hygiene regulations, and the prevention of avian diseases. Our markets are much cleaner and more organized now, but they have lost that chaotic, vibrant energy that told us exactly where our food came from. After visiting the market, how did we get home? We piled onto the family bicycle. The heavy black Flying Pigeon or Phoenix bicycle was the absolute king of the road. It was not just a mode of transport, it was the family minivan. It was entirely normal to see a father pedaling with all his might, while his oldest child sat sideways on the front crossbar, and the mother sat on the rear rack, tightly holding a toddler in her arms. 4 people balanced precariously on 2 thin tires, ringing the bell to clear a path through the crowded streets. We felt the wind on our faces, completely unaware of any danger, trusting our fathers' strong legs to keep us steady. There were no helmets, no safety seats, just the collective balance of a family moving together. Today, overloading a bicycle with multiple passengers is strictly illegal under modern traffic laws, designed to protect our safety on fast-moving, car-filled roads. We have traded the romance of the family bicycle for the safety of seatbelts and airbags, but we will never forget the joy of those breezy, crowded rides. When summer arrived, the city transformed, which leads us to one of the most nostalgic memories of all. The summers of the 1970s and 80s were sweltering, and air conditioning was an unimaginable luxury. So what did we do when our tiny, cramped rooms felt like ovens? We moved our lives onto the streets. As the sun set, families would carry out wooden beds, woven bamboo mats, and canvas lounge chairs, setting them up right on the sidewalks, the traffic islands, and even in the middle of quiet streets. Men sat shirtless, waving large palm leaf fans. Women chatted while shelling peas, and children chased fireflies before falling asleep under the open sky. The entire neighborhood slept together under the stars, cooled by the occasional night breeze. We felt completely safe. Today, sleeping or setting up beds on public sidewalks and streets is completely illegal, heavily enforced by urban management officers to maintain traffic flow and city aesthetics. We now sleep behind closed doors in the cool breeze of an air conditioner, but we have lost those magical nights of stargazing and whispering with the whole neighborhood. During the day, traveling longer distances within or just outside the city looked very different. It was common to see a large, dark green Jiefang cargo truck rumbling down the road, with 20 or 30 people standing or sitting in the open back. Whether it was workers heading to a factory site or families hitching a ride to the countryside, the back of a cargo truck was a standard passenger cabin. We would sit on rough burlap sacks filled with grain or simple wooden benches, holding tightly to the metal side rails as the truck bounced over uneven dirt roads. The wind whipped our hair, dust covered our faces, and we sang songs or shouted over the roar of the loud diesel engine to have a conversation. It was a rugged, communal adventure. Today, carrying passengers in the open cargo bed of a truck is a serious traffic violation, strictly banned to prevent tragic accidents. We travel in comfortable, climate-controlled buses now, but we rarely sing together, or feel the thrilling rush of the open air like we did in the back of those old green trucks. And speaking of loud engines, let us remember the agricultural tractors, the shofu tuolaji. These two-wheeled, walk-behind tractors were the workhorses of the era, and it was entirely normal for farmers to drive them directly into the very center of major cities. They would attach a wooden trailer to the back, load it high with fresh cabbages, watermelons, or coal, and chug their way through the main urban avenues. The sound was deafening, a rhythmic, mechanical pounding that you could hear from blocks away, accompanied by thick plumes of black smoke. They shared the road with bicycles and the occasional bus, bringing the sights and smells of the countryside right to our doorsteps. Today, driving these loud, polluting agricultural tractors within city limits is strictly illegal, banned by both traffic authorities and environmental protection agencies. Our city streets are much quieter and the air is vastly cleaner, but the direct raw connection between the urban dweller and the rural farmer has slowly faded away. When winter rolled around, those city streets hosted a different kind of magic. On almost every busy street corner you could find a vendor roasting sweet potatoes. But it is the way they did it that stands out. They used large, rusted industrial oil drums, repurposed into makeshift charcoal ovens. The vendor would cut a hole in the side, line the drum with clay, and balance the heavy metal barrel on a small, unsteady wooden cart. The sweet, caramelized aroma of baking sugar would drift down the street, calling out to everyone walking home in the freezing cold. We would buy a piping hot sweet potato, tossing it from hand to warm our frozen fingers before peeling back the charred skin. Today, using heavily modified, unregulated oil drums to roast food on the sidewalk is heavily restricted, and often entirely illegal due to strict urban management rules regarding city aesthetics, smoke emissions, and food safety. You can still buy roasted sweet potatoes, often baked in pristine electric ovens in convenience stores, but they somehow never smell quite as sweet as those from the rusty oil drums of our youth. Let us explore the magic of the early morning ghost markets, known as guishi. In the 1980s, long before modern shopping malls, these spontaneous, unregulated street markets were a treasure trove of the bizarre and the beautiful. They operated in a legal gray area. Vendors would arrive at 3 or 4 in the morning, laying down a simple piece of cloth on the dusty ground under the dim glow of a flashlight or an oil lamp. They sold everything from antique porcelain and used books to homemade tools and mysterious trinkets. You had to whisper your prices and haggle in the dark, creating an atmosphere of thrilling secrecy. As soon as the sun came up, the market would vanish like a ghost before the authorities could arrive to clear the streets. Today, these massive, spontaneous, and unlicensed street markets are completely illegal. Every vendor must have a permit, a registered stall, and pay taxes. The mystery of stumbling upon a rare treasure in the dark, bargaining in whispers, is a romance that belongs entirely to the past. Another unregulated joy of the era was found in the city waters. In the 70s and 80s, the canals, moats, and rivers that wound through our cities were the center of communal life. During the summer, it was completely normal for dozens of children to strip down and dive off ancient stone bridges into the murky canal waters to swim and catch small fish. Meanwhile, along the banks, women would gather with wooden washboards and giant aluminum basins, washing the family clothes in the river water, chatting and laughing while the children splashed nearby. The river was a playground, a laundry room, and a gathering place all in one. Today, swimming, fishing, and especially washing clothes with soap in city canals and ornamental lakes is strictly illegal, heavily enforced to protect water quality and ensure public safety. The rivers are cleaner now, lined with beautiful manicured parks, but they have become something we only look at rather than something we live in. As families grew and housing remained tight, people got creative with their living spaces. In the traditional courtyard houses, the hutongs, and even around the bases of apartment buildings, it was incredibly common to build makeshift brick extensions. If your son got married, you simply bought some bricks, mixed your own mortar, and built a tiny new room or a small outdoor kitchen right into the communal alleyway. These structures had patchwork roofs of asbestos tiles and tin sheets. The alleys grew narrower and narrower as families expanded their homes outward. You could hear your neighbor frying eggs just inches from your window, and people often passed salt and soy sauce to each other over the low, self-built walls. Today, constructing these spontaneous makeshift extensions is entirely illegal, classified as unauthorized building. Urban renewal projects have demolished most of them to widen roads and ensure fire safety. Our homes are larger and more structured now, but the intimate, chaotic closeness of those self-built neighborhoods is gone. Let us remember the milkman, but not the kind that brings glass bottles. In the late 70s and early 80s, it was normal to see a farmer leading a live goat, or sometimes even a cow, right through the residential alleyways. If you wanted milk for your child, you did not buy a carton. You brought your own aluminum pot out to the street. The farmer would milk the animal right there in front of you. The warm, frothy, strong-smelling milk streaming directly into your pot. You would then take it inside and boil it vigorously on your coal stove to make it safe to drink. The thick layer of cream that formed on top was a rare and delicious treat. Today, selling raw, unpasteurized milk directly from an animal on a city street is completely illegal under strict national food safety laws and health regulations. We now have rows of perfectly safe, homogenized milk in supermarkets, but the memory of that rich, warm milk, straight from the source, remains a symbol of true freshness. When autumn arrived, the air in the city would fill with a very specific, melancholic scent. As the leaves fell from the trees and the harvest ended in the fields just outside the urban center, it was a common practice to sweep the dry leaves and crop stubble into huge piles and set them on fire right in the streets or vacant lots. Children loved to poke the fires with long sticks, watching the sparks fly into the twilight sky. The thick white smoke would drift through the neighborhoods, smelling of earth and changing seasons. It was a simple way to clear the streets and provide a moment of warmth. Today, burning leaves, garbage, or crop stubble in or near residential areas is strictly illegal, carrying heavy fines to protect the environment and maintain the city air quality. The crisp autumn air is much clearer now, but sometimes a faint smell of wood smoke from a distant countryside chimney can instantly transport us back to those smoky, magical autumn evenings. For many children back then, the railway tracks were a place of adventure and duty. It was common for young boys and girls, carrying small woven bamboo baskets on their backs, to walk along the active railway lines leading into the city. They were there to collect unburned or half-burned pieces of coal that had tumbled from the heavy steam locomotives. It was a dangerous task, but no one saw it that way. It was simply a way to help the family save money on heating fuel. The children would balance on the iron rails, listening carefully for the rumble of an approaching train, and then dive down the grassy embankments when the massive black engines roared past, covering them in steam. Today, trespassing on railway tracks is a serious federal offense, strictly illegal, and physically blocked by high-security fences to prevent tragic accidents. The steam trains are gone, and children no longer need to scavenge for coal, leaving the tracks silent and inaccessible. A haircut in the 1980s was not always a luxury affair in a bright salon. Along the dusty sidewalks or under the shade of a large scholar tree, you would find the unregistered street barber. All he needed was a stool, a mirror hung on the bark of the tree by a nail, a pair of manual clippers, and a sharpened straight razor. He wore a white coat that had seen better days. Old men would sit on the stool while the barber lathered their faces with a brush and shaved them with the straight blade, cleaning their ears with tiny metal scoops right in the open air. The street barber spot was the neighborhood gossip hub, where men smoked cigarettes and debated the news. Today, operating an open-air unlicensed haircutting stand with exposed straight razors is illegal due to strict hygiene, sanitation, and business licensing laws. Modern salons require sterilized equipment and running water. The old street barbers have mostly vanished, taking with them a uniquely relaxed rhythm of city life. If you felt a bit under the weather, you might not go to a hospital. Instead, you might encounter the traveling medicine man. These self-proclaimed healers would spread a large cloth on the ground in a busy square, covered with dried roots, snake skins, mysterious dark pills, and animal bones. They were incredible storytellers, gathering large crowds with tales of ancient secret family recipes that could cure anything from a bad back to a broken heart. They performed martial arts or smashed bricks with their bare hands to prove the vitality their medicines provided. It was a form of street theater mixed with healthcare, and many people bought their homemade tonics on pure faith. Today, selling homemade, unregulated herbal medicines and tonics on the street, without pharmaceutical licenses and medical qualifications, is completely illegal and heavily prosecuted as fraud. Healthcare is safer and strictly regulated now, but those captivating street performers added a layer of mystery and wonder to our daily walks. Springtime brought a different kind of foraging. As soon as the earth thawed, grandmothers and mothers would take small hand hoes and woven bags and head to the public parks and green spaces within the city. They were looking for wild bamboo shoots, dandelion greens, and shepherdess purse. It was perfectly normal to see people digging up the soil right next to the municipal walkways, harvesting edible wild plants to bring home and mix with minced pork to make the most delicious, fragrant spring dumplings. The city was treated as an extension of the countryside, a place to gather food. Today, foraging for wild plants, digging up soil, or harvesting bamboo shoots in manicured public city parks is strictly illegal, resulting in fines for destroying public property and landscaping. We buy our greens neatly bundled at the supermarket now, missing the joy of the hunt and the earthy taste of a spring harvest we dug up with our own hands. Before taxis became common, the streets were ruled by the human-pedaled rickshaws, the sanglun che. These three-wheeled bicycles with a small carriage on the back were everywhere. They were entirely unregistered and unregulated. You would flag one down and haggle fiercely over the price of the journey before climbing in. The driver, often an older man with incredibly muscular calves, would pedal you through the chaotic traffic, sweating profusely in the summer heat, the heavy chain squeaking with every rotation. They knew every shortcut, every hidden alleyway, and they functioned as the blood vessels of the city U.S. transport network. Today, operating a human-pedaled rickshaw for paying passengers without a special tourist license and strict safety regulations is illegal in almost all major city centers. They have been replaced by silent electric cars and ride-hailing apps. The journey is faster and smoother, but we miss the slow rhythmic sway of the sanglun che and the breathless stories told by the driver. Music and dancing also found their way onto the asphalt. In the late 80s, as cassette players became portable and foreign music entered the country, a new craze swept the cities. It was not uncommon to see a massive group of young people, and sometimes older folks, drag a giant boombox into the middle of a traffic intersection or a busy public square. They would turn the volume to the maximum and host spontaneous, large-scale, open-air dances. Cars and bicycles would simply have to navigate around them or stop and wait, It was a burst of newfound freedom and collective expression, dancing the waltz or disco right on the street under the streetlights. Today, blocking traffic intersections or playing excessively loud music in public spaces is strictly illegal due to noise ordinances and traffic management laws. Even the modern square dancing grandmothers are heavily restricted by time and zoning laws. The streets belong to the cars now, not to the dancers. Finally, we come to the most touching memory of all. A simple ritual that captures the essence of that era. In the days before every home had a telephone, let alone a smartphone, how did we communicate? If a relative was visiting from out of town, or a child was returning from a long trip, we did not track their location on a screen. We went to the train station, completely unhindered by security gates or ticket barriers, and walked right onto the platform. It was perfectly normal to run alongside the massive, slow-moving green trains as they pulled into the station, searching frantically through the open windows for the face of your loved one. When you found them, you reached your hands through the window to grab their luggage, laughing and crying before they even stepped off the train. Today, entering a train platform without a valid ticket and passing through layers of security is entirely illegal. We wait behind glass barriers in massive, sterile waiting halls. We have gained incredible speed and safety in our travels, but we have lost the profound, heart-pounding joy of running on the platform, reaching out to touch the hand of someone we love the very second they arrive. As we look back at these 20 memories, it becomes clear that we do not just miss the old objects or the unregulated streets. What we truly miss is our youth, the slower pace of time, and the deep, unpolished connections we had with our neighbors and our families. We miss a time when life felt a little more raw, a little more chaotic, but infinitely warmer. These things may be illegal or impossible to do today, but they remain perfectly preserved in our hearts. If this journey brought a smile to your face or a tear to your eye, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like to help keep these precious stories alive. And now I would love to hear from you. Which of these 20 memories touched you the most? Or what is a forgotten ritual from your own childhood that you wish you could experience just one more time? Please share your stories in the comments below, and let us remember the beautiful days of our past together.